She walked into the boardroom with quiet confidence, dressed simply, without flashy labels or a powerful entourage. Most of the men around the long table barely looked up from their phones. To them, she was just someone's assistant, or maybe an intern who had wandered into the wrong meeting. They smirked, exchanged glances, and whispered under their breath. One of them even asked if she was there to take coffee orders. What they didn't know was that she wasn't just another face in the room, she was the key to everything they were hoping to gain. This woman, kind, soft-spoken, and easily overlooked, had more power in that room than all of them combined. But not because she shouted or demanded attention. It was because she had something none of them expected. A connection that would change the entire course of that meeting. She had the trust and love of the very man who held the future of their project in his hands, the billionaire backer behind the company's most ambitious investment. As the meeting went on, that arrogance grew. They made bold pitches, cracked jokes at her expense, and assumed she had no idea what any of the business talk even meant. But every time she nodded or took a quiet note, she was collecting more than just words. She was watching, remembering, and waiting. And just when they thought they had it all figured out, something happened. One moment flipped the entire room upside down. The same people who laughed at her were suddenly scrambling to change their tone. What changed? What truth was revealed that made them instantly regret every word they said? Stick around, because the moment they realized who she really was, everything changed. Her name was Maya. She didn't wear expensive jewelry, didn't speak with a polished accent, and didn't flash her last name around like a badge. She preferred to stay low-key, especially in rooms like this, where egos filled the air more than oxygen. She had learned a long time ago that silence could be more powerful than shouting. Let people show you who they really are, and that day they showed her everything. The men in the room were all chasing the same thing, an investment from a mysterious billionaire who had stayed in the shadows of the deal. They had spent weeks preparing flashy presentations, trying to outdo one another, convinced that whoever impressed the mystery investor the most would get the biggest piece of the pie. But what none of them knew was that Maya was married to the man behind it all. Not just his wife, but his closest advisor, the one he trusted with his vision, his plans, and yes, his money. But Maya didn't walk into that room to flaunt her connection. She came to observe, to see how these men acted when they thought no one important was watching. And they made it easy. The way they dismissed her ideas, the jokes about her simple dress, the way they spoke over her like she didn't exist, it said more about them than any pitch ever could. One man in particular, Jordan, was the loudest, slick, confident, and arrogant. He led most of the mocking. He even laughed out loud when Maya tried to ask a question about the proposal. "Leave the numbers to us," he said, chuckling. Maya smiled politely and nodded. But inside, she wasn't just listening, she was deciding. And what came next, no one in that room was prepared for. The meeting dragged on, filled with big promises and louder voices. Everyone in that boardroom was trying to outshine the others, each man trying to prove he was the smartest in the room. But the louder they got, the more Maya faded into the background, just the way she wanted. From her corner seat, she watched how they treated one another, how they spoke about the investors behind closed doors, and how quick they were to twist the truth to make a deal sound better than it really was. Jordan, who clearly saw himself as the leader of the group, had been working on this project for months. He talked about his market strategy like it was the next big thing. He name-dropped executives he barely knew and exaggerated numbers Maya knew were false. Every time she asked a gentle question, something simple like, "Have you considered the risk if market trends shift?" He waved her off with a smug smile. "That's not something you need to worry about," he said. "We've got it under control." Behind the scenes, Maya had already seen the reports. She knew the market trends, the risks, and the numbers better than anyone else in that room. She also knew that the billionaire investor, her husband, was worried about putting his money in the wrong hands. That's why he asked her to attend, not to be impressed, but to see what kind of people they were when the mask was off. What Maya found was worse than expected: egos, lies, and carelessness. A room full of people who wanted the money but didn't care about the mission behind it. And as the meeting neared its end, whispers began about the decision-maker who would soon be arriving. They had no idea he was already in the room, through her eyes. As the final slides clicked across the screen, tension in the room shifted. The men were growing restless, watching the clock, expecting the billionaire backer to walk in any second. Jordan straightened his tie, practiced his winning smile, and made a show of checking his phone. "Any word on when the investor's arriving?" he asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. The others followed his lead, adjusting jackets, whispering final notes, trying to look important. Maya stayed quiet. She glanced down at her notebook, filled with scribbles, notes not just on the proposals, but on the people. Words like dismissive, reckless, arrogant circled in red. These weren't just business decisions anymore. These were character judgments, and every minute she sat in that room, she saw more of who they really were. Jordan leaned toward her, voice low but condescending. "You might want to clear out before the big guy shows up. These things get serious fast." Maya smiled slightly. "Oh, I'm sure they do." Then the assistant entered. Everyone sat up straight. The room went silent. "The investor's representative is ready to speak," she said. Maya stood. Chairs shuffled. Confused glances. Whispers. Someone laughed awkwardly. "Wait, what?" Jordan said, his grin cracking. She stepped forward, calm and steady. Every eye was on her now, not with pity or judgment, but confusion. The same people who had ignored her were now glued to her every move, and the man who had mocked her the loudest looked pale. Maya looked around the room slowly, meeting each gaze. The silence stretched, thick with tension. No one spoke. No one dared. What was she going to say? They thought the real meeting was just beginning. They were wrong. It had already happened, and she was the one taking notes. Maya paused at the front of the room, letting the silence linger just long enough. She could feel their nerves unraveling. The same men who barely acknowledged her were now staring, trying to piece together what was happening. Then she spoke, clear, calm, and without a hint of anger. "I've been here since the start," she said. "Not just today, but from the very beginning of this project. You didn't see me because you didn't think you needed to, but I saw everything." Jordan tried to laugh it off. "Look, if this is some kind of misunderstanding, it's not." Maya cut in, her voice sharper now. "I'm the one my husband trusts most. And yes, he's the investor you've all been waiting for. But this meeting wasn't for him. It was for me. Because no amount of polished slides can hide poor character." The room fell back into silence. Only this time it was filled with dread. But then the second twist came, one that none of them saw coming. Maya reached into her bag and pulled out a second folder. "This," she said, placing it on the table, "is a proposal from a small team outside this boardroom. A group of women-led entrepreneurs you all laughed at during the last round. They had the numbers, the plan, the heart, but they didn't have the spotlight." She let that sink in. "The final decision hasn't been made," she added, voice steady. "But let's just say the people who didn't talk over me, the ones who didn't mock others to feel powerful, they're looking a lot better right now." Gasps, uneasy shifting. The stakes had changed completely. Now, it wasn't just about winning a deal. It was about who would be exposed, and who still had a chance to redeem themselves. The air in the boardroom felt heavier now. Eyes darted nervously toward Maya, some trying to apologize without words, others frozen in disbelief. Jordan's face had gone pale, the smug confidence completely wiped away. He leaned forward, desperate. "Maya, let's not make this personal. We all want what's best for the company." She turned to him calmly. "Exactly. And that's why people like you won't be a part of it." Then she opened the second folder, sliding out a simple, straightforward pitch. No flashy graphics, no exaggerated numbers, just clear goals, ethical planning, and a long-term vision for real impact. It was the very proposal that had been brushed aside weeks ago. One that was honest, community-focused, and sustainable. The billionaire backer, her husband, had read it first and said, "Let's see if the others notice it without the name." They didn't, but Maya did, and now the power was hers. As of this morning, she continued, our team has chosen to fund this group. The deal is done. Signed. The announcement goes public tomorrow. There were stunned gasps around the table, deals worth millions, gone in a blink. But just when they thought it was over, Maya added one last twist. She reached into her bag once more and pulled out a simple envelope. For the rest of you, she said, there's still a role to play, if you're willing to earn it. You've got 1 week to submit revised proposals, without the ego, without the show. If there's real value, we'll consider you. Jordan sat back, speechless. Maya looked around one final time. Next time, remember, the quietest person in the room might just be the one writing the checks. And with that, she walked out. No drama, no raised voice. Just the sound of power-shifting hands. Word of what happened in that boardroom spread fast. By the next morning, the industry buzz wasn't about who had the flashiest pitch, but about the simple woman who turned the entire room upside down. Investors and startups began re-evaluating their approach, realizing that titles and appearances didn't always reflect the true decision-makers. Maya, once overlooked, had become a quiet symbol of something much bigger: integrity, insight, and the power of staying grounded. The team she championed, those women-led entrepreneurs, used the investment to launch a product that not only turned profit, but made real social impact. Maya continued working behind the scenes, helping guide the business with care and vision, just as she always had. Her husband never once stepped into the spotlight, because he didn't need to. Maya had handled everything exactly the way he trusted she would. As for Jordan and the others, some never came back. Their pride got in the way, but a few did submit new proposals. Simpler, more honest, stripped of the arrogance they once wore like armor. Maya didn't forget how they treated her, but she believed in growth, and she watched closely to see who meant it. The experience changed more than just one deal. It reminded everyone in that room, and those watching from the outside, that respect, humility, and quiet strength matter in business more than loud voices and big promises. Success doesn't always look like a luxury suit or a corner office. Sometimes it looks like a woman in modest clothes, calmly flipping through her notes, while silently holding the future in her hands. And for anyone who ever felt underestimated, Maya's story became a quiet reassurance. Power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just walks in, listens carefully, and then changes everything.